Periphrasis.
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 Periphrasis. Periphrasis. Hare Krishna. So we're going to continue tonight the explanation of a class that we heard by Srila Prabhupada and we're on the verse, second chapter, verse number 12, where Krishna says, "Never was there was a time that I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings assembled on this battlefield, nor will we cease to exist in the future." So Krishna, where this verse, "Natvevaham jatu nasam natvam nemi janadipaha nachayvina bhavisyama sarvavayam atakparam," he establishes the full eternality of the soul. So he says, never was there a time that I did not exist nor you. So he says that he existed previously, and so did Arjuna. They exist now as unique individuals. They existed in the past as unique individuals, and they will exist in the future as unique individuals. So the full eternality of the soul is established in this verse. And this is a fundamental point, and this differs from Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. They do not portray the soul as having full eternality. If you've ever been to the Sistine Chapel in Rome, in the Vatican, you'll see a picture of God and the creation, where he's touching Adam and infusing life into his body, or a soul into his body. So, according to the Christian theology, the individuality of a person begins when they have a body. And as we explained yesterday, because of that, when a Christian or a Muslim or a Jew dies, then they need to bury the body and preserve it as much as possible, because they have the belief in the second coming of Jesus. So at that time, though, he will resurrect all the dead bodies and give a final judgment, and then either one goes to heaven or to hell. So the Vedic philosophy is starkly different, because it establishes the full eternality of the soul, as evinced or as seen in this verse 2:12, also in 15:7 and 2:24, and in the Katha Upanishad, Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadati Kamam. So, in all these verses, the eternal individuality of Krishna, the internal individuality of the jivas, or the individual souls like us, is validated in the past, the present, and the future. Now, once you understand this, then you can easily see the fault in Mayavad philosophy. You can see the glaring inconsistencies in the Abrahamic religions, like Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And you have a way to shastrically show the fault. And also you see the serious problem with impersonalism All of those have philosophical errors. And because of that, they end up with the dilemma of not having credible answers to important questions, like, if God is all merciful, how come there's suffering in this world? If God is all merciful, then how come some people are born blind or crippled and others born healthy? So these questions cannot be answered credibly and logically by the Mayavadis, by the Christians, by the Jews, by the Muslims, or by the atheists either. See? So this is a fundamental principle of the full eternality of the soul. There's incomplete internality of the soul in Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. And in the Mayavad philosophy, they say that there's only one soul, and there are no individual souls. And whatever individuality you see in this world, even if it's Krishna, it's actually an illusion. So the Mayavadis are the worst, let's say, misleaders or misinterpreters of Vedic philosophy. They are directly contradicting the words of Krishna. Okay, so Prabhupada covers this very thoroughly, and now we're going to go over it. Before we go to that point, there's one thing that Prabhupada said that was very interesting. That is that the disciple should always feel that he's a fool in front of the spiritual master. And Lord Chaitanya himself, when he was questioned by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, why are you chanting in the streets like a sentimental person? And he said, well, my spiritual master considered me a fool, therefore he told me just to chant Hare Krishna. Now, Lord Chaitanya is not a fool, but there's a tension. Let's say somebody's spiritual master has left this world. Now the disciple has the right to become a spiritual master. But if he thinks or she thinks that they are greater than the previous spiritual master, they make a big mistake. In front of the spiritual master, they're always a fool. In front of their disciples are always praising the spiritual master as if he or she is God's gift to humanity, right? So if the spiritual master goes too much to the side of his disciples, he will deviate. He must always remain a fool in relationship to his own guru, and not pretend to be something that he's not. He's simply a humble servant of the guru, even though he may be praised in so many ways by his or her disciples. And then Prabhupada says that as soon as Arjuna surrendered to Krishna, Sisyasteham sadimam tvam prapanam, second chapter, I think it's the 7th verse, at that point, Krishna stopped having a friendly discussion with Arjuna, and he began to speak very seriously. And what did he do? The first thing he did was chastise Arjuna. He said, although you're speaking as if you're a very wise man, but what you're saying is actually foolish. You're lamenting for something that should not be lamented for. One should not lament for the living or for the dead body, because when the body is dead, you cannot bring it back. And when a person is living, there's no reason to lament old age, disease, and death, because the soul is eternal. You can't bring the body back, but the soul itself can never be killed. And that is what's explained, for example, when Krishna says to Arjuna, Achedyo yam madayo yam akledyo susya evacha nitya sarva gatastanur achalo yam sanatanam. So he says, this individual soul is unbreakable and insoluble and can be neither burned nor dried. The soul is everlasting, present everywhere, and unchangeable, immovable, and eternally the same. So he's establishing the full eternality of the soul, the individual soul. And obviously Krishna also, in the Katha Upanishad, it clearly says, Nityo nityanam chaitanas chaitananam eko bahunam yo vidadati kamam. He said that Krishna is the supreme eternal amongst all eternals. But what differentiates him is that he is supplying all the necessities for the other eternals. So, therefore, no one can be equal to or greater than Krishna. So, Prabhupada makes a point. He says that the disciple should remain always a fool before his spiritual master. One should select the spiritual master in that way, and as soon as the spiritual master is selected, one should remain always a fool, although he may not be a fool. But the better position is like that. So Arjuna, instead of remaining on the same level as a friend with Krishna, voluntarily accepted to remain a fool before Krishna. And Krishna is accepting that. You are a fool. You're talking just like a learned man, but you are a fool because you are lamenting on matter which is on a matter which no learned man laments. That means a fool laments that you are a fool, therefore you are a fool. It is the roundabout way. He says, just like what is called in logic, he said parenthesis, but actually what he meant was he meant periphrasis. Periphrasis is a Greek word that's in the English language, and it means a roundabout way of saying something. So if you say, you know, you look just like the guy that stole my watch. Well, that's like saying you're a thief, right? I didn't call you a thief, but I said, you look just like the guy that stole my watch. So that's a roundabout way of saying you are a thief. So in English, that's called periphrasis. And or circumlocution. There are two ways of saying that, but the technical word is periphrasis. Parenthesis is a different word. Even if you pronounce it differently, still, it means you put those brackets around something in a sentence. But periphrasis means that you say something in a roundabout way. Okay, so in the Svetasvatara Upanishad, it said that the Supreme Personality Godhead is the maintainer of innumerable living entities in terms of their different situations according to individual work and reaction to work. That Supreme Personality Godhead is also, by his plenary portions, alive in the heart of every living entity. Only saintly persons who can see within and without the same Supreme Personality Godhead can actually attain to perfect peace eternally. So this is an important verse, and it's quoted both in the Katha Upanishad and the Svetasvatara Upanishad. And now Krishna is saying the same thing to Arjuna. He's saying, never was there a time that I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, or in the future shall any of us cease to be. So, therefore he's saying, in the past, in the present, and the future, we always exist. And there's no such thing as we came into existence. The body comes into existence, but not the soul. And that's explained also in the second chapter, 20th verse, where Krishna says that Na jayate mriyate va kadachin nayam bhutva bhavitava nabuya ajo nityasa svatam yam purano nahanyate hanyamane sarire. The soul has neither birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. In other words, like the body comes into being, but the soul has always existed. As in what way? 15:7 says, Mamaya Vamsa Jiva Bhuta Jivaloka Sanatana. That the soul is the Mama Eva Amsa, the part and parcel of the Lord. Part and parcel means that the soul, the individual jiva, is always connected to Krishna. We're never out of connection with Krishna. But yet, we are a unique individual, and Krishna is a unique individual. So this is Achintya Veda Veda Tattva, simultaneously one and inconceivably different. So, now, I, you, and all the others are eternal. That's what he's saying in 2:12. So, next, Prabhupada begins to say something about Mayavad philosophy. Now, he's going to come back to this many times down the rest of the lecture. And he says, according to Mayavad philosophy, the ultimate spirit is impersonal. Then how can Krishna say, never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these other persons? That means Krishna existed as an individual, you and I have existed as individuals, and all these persons who are before us, they also, all the other living entities, they've existed as individuals. Never was there a time when there did not exist. But the Mayavadis say there's only one spirit, and it's not an individual. It's impersonal. So they are directly contradicting or saying something different than Krishna. And any time a person says something different than Krishna, they should immediately be rejected. What they said should be rejected. So, Prabhupada says, then when the impersonal conception comes at all, where does it come from, he said? How does it have any standing when it's directly contradicting what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita? In the past, in the present, in the future, he says, there are 3 times. In all the times, Krishna is saying we are individuals. In the present, there's no doubt we are existing as individual. In the future, also, we shall continue to remain as individual. And in the past, we existed as individuals. Then, from where does this impersonal conception come from? Say, in the past, present, and future, there are 3 times. In all the times, we're individuals, according to Krishna. In the present, there's no doubt we are existing. And then he says, then when God becomes impersonal, or I become impersonal, or you become impersonal, where's the chance? When he just said we're always individuals. So Krishna says clearly that never was there a time that I, you, and all these individual kings or soldiers have existed. We've all existed in the past, in the present, and the future. It's not that we didn't exist in the past. So in the past we existed as an individual, and the present, there's no doubt we are individuals. We're existing as individual. You are my disciple. I am your spiritual master, but you have got your individuality. I have got my individuality. If you don't agree with me, you can leave. Yeah. I mean, Arjuna can walk away from Krishna anytime he wants. He's a unique individual. He's different than, he's a different person than Krishna, right? So Prabhupada said, that is your individuality. You can come or you can go. You can either accept Krishna as Guru or you can walk away from Krishna. See? If you don't like Krishna, you cannot become Krishna conscious. That is your individuality. So this individuality continues, past, the present, and future. And similarly, if Krishna does not like you, he may refuse you the opportunity to be Krishna conscious. Not that because you're following all the rules and regulations, Krishna is obliged to accept you. No. If he thinks that you are nonsense, I will not accept him. He'll reject you. So, this is a very important point. That's why Prabhupada says that Krishna consciousness is not causal. What does that mean? You have any idea what that means? Krishna consciousness is not causal.
You cannot force Krishna to love you.
Well, yes, but more specifically, it's not because you're chanting 16 rounds, or you're offering your food, or you're coming to the temple and having a quick darshan, that Krishna has to accept you. Say, just like you might be the greatest jurist, let's say a lawyer or a judge, but unless the Senate of the United States accepts you, you cannot be Supreme Court judge. You might be the best judge in the world, but they have to accept you. And many times they have rejected the most qualified people to become Supreme Court judge for political reasons or for any reason. But in the case of Krishna, he's not obliged to accept anyone just because they're chanting 16 rounds, right? Or being a vegetarian, or going on parikrama, or getting bhakti shastri, or no. If he thinks that you're a nonsense, and he won't accept you, even though you're doing all those things. So Mayavadis do all those things. In other words, they're celibate, they're renounced, they chant mantras, they meditate, they live in very austere situations, and so forth. They do all these. They follow all the rules, Vedic rules, but they're not accepted by Krishna. You see? Why? Because they're nonsense, even though they're following the rules. So, therefore, he says, Krishna is not that because you're following all the rules and regulations, Krishna is obliged to accept you. No. If he thinks that he's nonsense, I cannot accept him. He'll reject you. So Krishna has got his individuality. You have got your individuality. Everyone has got individuality. Where does the question of impersonalism come from? Prabhupada says. How have they manufactured this false idea when they're directly contradicting what Krishna says not only once, many times in the Bhagavad Gita. He establishes not only in 2:12, in 15:7, in 2:24, many other places he establishes that the soul is eternal. In fact, let's see. I made a list yesterday. Let's see how many verses there are. This is very interesting. How many times Krishna says that the soul is eternal. The individual, he is eternal and the soul is eternal. Let's see. E.T. One second. Soul. Yeah, he says many times in the Bhagavad Gita, where did I put that? That's nonsense. I made a whole list yesterday. I can't find it now. Okay, we'll come back. Huh?
I have one question.
Yeah. Yes.
So if the soul feels that Krishna doesn't have to accept me, he may feel very lonely, right? Like
Krishna or the person?
The person might feel like Krishna is not obliged, right? So he might feel like a child who the father doesn't like or something like that.
Well, no. He should remain, well, the sign that the person is genuinely surrendered to Krishna, there's 6 signs, 6 indications. 1, Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam. And it says, Raiksisya siti vishvaso goptritve varanam tata atmaniksepa karpanya sadvida saranagati. So these are 6 symptoms of surrender to Krishna. First, Anukulyasya sankalpa. He accepts everything favorable for Krishna consciousness. Second, pratikulyasya varjanam. He rejects everything unfavorable. 3, he accepts that Krishna is his only protector. 4, he has no other interest outside of Krishna consciousness. And it strictly follows the instructions of the gurus, 6 Diksha gurus. 5, he is always surrendered to being the humble servant. 6, he remains meek and gentle. So these are 6 symptoms. So if you chant Hare Krishna with these 6 attitudes of Saranagati, surrender, then you control anger, you control lust, you control greed, you control illusion, you control envy, you control madness. Then Krishna becomes your friend. So just now all these symptoms were present in Prahlad Maharaj. So what did Krishna do? He protected him. And also it says, Satatam kirtayanto mam chitantascha dhritavata namasyantascha mam nityam namasyantascha mam bhaktya nitya yukta upasate. So he says, this is the symptom of a surrendered devotee, always chanting the glories of the Lord. Satatam kirtayanto mam chitantascha dhritavata, with a strong vow, dhritavata. Namasyantas chamam bhakti, always engaged in glorifying the name of the Lord and engaged in the service of the Lord. Nitya yukta upasyate, connected to the Lord continually through devotional service and worshiping the Lord. So this is the symptom of someone who's fully surrendered. They don't have any other interest in life other than pleasing Krishna. And it's also said that Mai sarvani karmani sanyasyas yatma chetasa nirasir nirmama bhutva yudyasva vigataspriya. This is a very important verse, 3rd chapter, 30th verse. It says that Mai sarvani karmani, one should be engaged in devotional service constantly. Sanyasyas atma chetasa, fully conscious of Krishna and fully renounced. And again, no other interest other than pleasing the Lord. Nirasi, no desire for profit or fame. Nirmama, without the sense of proprietorship. In other words, you understand, Krishna is the proprietor. You have a sense of proprietorship. You know that Krishna is the proprietor, not you, or not me. Right? Nirasya. Yujasva vigataspriha. And always endeavoring and never lazy. Never lethargic. See? So in that verse, in the purport to that verse, Prabhupada said, one should serve Krishna as if in military discipline. One should perform their duty. Mai sarvasya karmani. One should perform their duty with a full sense of renunciation and with fully conscious of Krishna. So, this sacred duty concept, a duty is something that you must do. You cannot refuse doing it. And when Prabhupada says, as if in military discipline, in the United States military, if you receive an order from an officer and you don't follow it, they'll put you in jail. They'll punish you severely for insubordination. So when you join the army, they make it very clear from this point on, you're in a different realm. You're under military discipline. So Prabhupada says that one should engage in devotional service as if in military discipline. See? Okay, so now this whole idea of eternality of the individuality is eternality of one's individuality and Krishna's individuality is very important because Mayavadis clearly contradict it. You see? So Krishna's got individuality, you have got individuality, everyone has got individuality. Where's the question of impersonalism? Where does it come from? See, Mayavadis say, Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya, that the Brahman, the eternal effulgence, is the truth, and the Jagat, the material world, is an illusion. In fact, everything about the material world is an illusion. But one thing they forget is that their philosophy is also an illusion. See, that's what they forget. They don't say that. They say, you know, everything is an illusion in the material world. But they have to also add, no, so is our philosophy. See? So, can you say anywhere there is agreement between two parties? No. Is there agreement between you and your wife? Yes?
I mean, not written but abstract.
And no, on every point you agree?
Oh.
Yeah, okay, that's the point, yeah. She's an individual, you're an individual. See? You go study in a state, or in a family, in the community, in the nation. There's no agreement. Even in the assembly, meaning the Lok Sabha or the Congress of the United States, right? Even in your country, suppose there is Senate. Everyone has got country's interests, but he's thinking in his individual way. Yeah, just now, right now, you have Pelosi who says, we'll never give money for the wall. And Trump says, if you don't give me money for the wall, I'll close the government again, or I'll do something else. You see? So it's individuality, right? Differences of opinion. One is thinking that my country's welfare will be in my way of thinking. Otherwise, why is there competition during election of president? Everyone is saying America needs Nixon, America needs Trump, America needs, what's his name, Schwartz? No, what's his name, the coffee man.
CEO of coffee.
Yeah, Harold Schwartz. Yeah. Is it Schwartz? Yeah, something like that. And another president, candidate for president, he says, America needs me. See? So, but why two? If America, you are both, it means that, you know, there's a difference of opinion. That's what it means. So there's individuality. In the Senate, in the Congress, in the United Nations, everyone is fighting with his individual view. Otherwise, why there are so many flags in the world? You cannot say anywhere impersonalism. There's no impersonalism in this world. How can you say that, you know, the ultimate state is impersonal? You know, personality is predominating everywhere. Everywhere there's personality, individuality. It's predominant. So we have to accept that that is a fact, not only because Krishna says it, because we see it everywhere. And they're purporting that in the ultimate state, there's no individuality. It's preposterous. It's ridiculous. There's no rhyme or reason. It's just something made up. That's why it's called Mayavad. They are worshiping something that's an illusion. So we have to accept, Prabhupada says, we have to apply our reason, arguments, and accept the authority. Then the question is solved. Otherwise, it's most different. We have to accept Krishna's authority. You don't accept Krishna's authority, then there are no more any boundaries. Yatamat tatapat. Whatever anybody says, you either believe it or you don't believe it, but you'll never come to a final conclusion because everyone keeps coming up with new theories, right? And you also will come up with new theories because there's no boundary. The boundary should be Krishna has the final word. So Prabhupada writes in his purport to 212, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the supreme individual person, and Arjuna, the Lord's eternal associate, and all the kings assembled there are individual eternal persons. It is not that they did not exist as individuals in the past, and it is not that they will not exist in the future. They will not remain as eternal persons. No, their individuality existed in the past, and their individuality will continue in the future without interruption. Therefore, there's no cause for lamentation for anyone for an individual living entity who dies. The Mayavadi or impersonal theory that after liberation an individual soul separates from Maya or illusion will merge into the impersonal Brahman without individual existence. And Prabhupada says, Mayavadi says that this individuality is Maya. So their conception is that the spirit, the whole spirit, is a lump. There's only one spirit. There are no individuals. Their theory is Gatakas, Potakas. You know what that is? Okay. This is their theory. I'm going to explain now. Gatakas, Potakas. Potakas is a small water jug. Now, in a small clay water jug, there's air inside, right? And outside, there's the great air, right? So the Mayavadis compare the illusory individuality in the material world like the air, the small air in the jug. When you break the jug, it merges with the great air, right? So that individuality is something illusory. It's not really an individual. This is what they say, right? Or if you have a bubble of air underwater, it starts rising, and when it comes to the surface, it goes like that and merges into the earth, right? It's all nonsense. It's all nonsense philosophy. Why? Because an analogy, see, they're trying to prove their theory by using an analogy. First of all, Prabhupada says, analogy is never proof. Shastra is proof. So we just read Shastra. Krishna says, never was there a time I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor will there ever be a time where we will cease to exist. That's Shastra. That's proof. But the Mayavadis give this analogy of Gatakas, Potakas, right? And an analogy is only good if there are points of similarity. Now, they're trying to explain that the soul seems to be individual. There seems to be an individual soul in the material world, but the material world is Maya. And at death, whatever seems to be an individual soul, it merges back into the all oneness. And they give the example of the air in the water pot and the grand air. Well, the fault with that analogy is that you cannot compare a clay pot to the soul. A clay pot and the air in the clay pot are both material, and the soul is not material, it's spiritual. So right away you can reject that analogy because there are no points of similarity. Yeah.
Probably in DYS,
Yeah.
we connect the car and the driver to the soul and the body.
Yeah.
So is this analogy different?
Well, no, the example is when you see the car drive by, right, you assume that it's your friend's car, you know that. So you assume that your friend is inside. But it could be your friend's mother driving the car, right? So you would make a mistake by identifying your friend with the car. Okay? Now, but that's not the way they're using that example, though. So the way they're using the example is that, okay, you say what you just said, then I'll tell you. What did you just say? You said in DYS, they say that.
The car
Yeah.
and the driver
Yeah.
compared to the soul and the body.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that is it's not an analogy. It is an example that's correct. The driver is a person, the car is a material thing. So the body is a material thing, and the soul is a person. So that's a valid example.
So if the soul is being connected to a material object,
Now let's say there is a Tesla that's autopilot, right? And you say that there's no human being, there's no person driving the car. It's on autopilot, right? And basically, that's the way we are. We're not really a person. It's just some kind of autopilot that's covered with a body. Well, see, now you confuse the issue, right? The driver and the car is an analogy, is a valid analogy for the soul in the body. And also Krishna says, Iswara sarvabhutanam hirde se rajunatistati brahmayan sarvabhutani yantarurani mayaya. This is a very important verse because this explains shastrically the same point. It says that Ishwara sarvabhutanam, Krishna says, I am the Supreme Lord of all living entities. Hirde se rajunatistati, and I am situated in the heart of every living entity. Brahmayan sarvabhutani, and he says, and I'm directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of material energy. Okay, you see, so the living entity, the soul, is situated on a machine made of material energy. That's the body. So correct. Okay, so you have shastric evidence for that example. Okay, you know what verse that is? Let me tell you. That is the 18th chapter and it's verse 61. 1861. So you have shastric evidence for that example. Okay, yeah. So analogy means points of similarity. So if you're comparing a clay pot and the air in the clay pot to an illusory soul that doesn't really exist, and when the pot breaks, then the air merges into the totality of the air, and that's their example to prove that there's only one soul. There are not many souls. Well, that's like comparing, elephants to oranges. They're two different entities, right? So you can't compare the air in a pot to a soul. You can't compare the pot to a soul, right? It's a material thing, and the soul is a spiritual thing. So there's no corresponding similarities. Therefore, that analogy is no good. So now you have a criterion for judging if an analogy is valid or invalid. But even if the analogy is valid, that is not proof. It's only to help people who don't know anything identify the thing they don't know with something that they know. So they know a car and a person sitting in the car. But the proof is 1861, right? Bhagavad Gita, where it says that the Lord is in the heart of every living entity, and He's directing the wanderings of all living entities as if they are situated on a machine made of matter. So the machine is the body, which functions like a machine. But it's completely different than the soul. Okay. So matter has no individuality. Spirit has individuality. How do we know that? Well, if I get a hammer and bang the wall, or I bang the carpet, does it say ouch? If I bang you with the hammer, what would you say? You'd say ouch. So that means that you are a person and the carpet is not a person. Okay. So how do we understand if someone is a person? Well, they have consciousness. And what does consciousness do? It reacts to pain and pleasure. The carpet doesn't react to pain and pleasure, right? The wall doesn't react to pain and pleasure. So you can't say the wall is a person or the carpet is a person. But you are a person. If I hit you with a hammer, you would scream. You'd call the police, right? You say, because you're a person. You're reacting to pain and pleasure, right? That's the symptom of the presence of the soul. Now, if a person dies, you can beat them with a hammer. Will they say anything? Because the soul has left the body. So this is matter. Right? It doesn't say anything. You bang it as much as you want. It's not going to say anything, right? The carpet. Well, same thing with a dead body. You can bang it as much as you want. It's not going to say anything. It's not going to complain. And even the people that love that person, they're not going to say anything. They say, well, he's dead, you know, so what can you do? If he was alive, they call the police, they jump on you, they bang you with the hammer. But because the person is dead, they're not there anymore. He's gone, they say. Oh, he's gone. Pita is gone. But where did he go? The body's still there. Well, because he's different than the body. See? Okay, so matter has no individuality. Spirit has individuality. So that's something that's very important. And that's the way you prove the existence of the soul. Because when the soul leaves the body, there's no consciousness. While the soul was in the body, there's plenty of consciousness. It's all over the body. So if the points of similarity differ, then there is no analogy. That is the law of analogy. So you cannot analogize with matter and spirit. You can't compare a pot to a soul, or the air in the pot to a soul. They're not the same thing. So the analogy doesn't work. Therefore, this analogy is fallacious. Fallacious means it's false. Gatakas, putakas. And that's probably their best argument of the Mayavadis. And it's false. It's a false argument.
You use an analogy as evidence?
You use analogy to help people who don't know anything. They give that example yet. See, like for example, Ramanujacharya gives an example of to debunk Mayavad philosophy. He says, it's like a green bird that flies into a green forest. It looks like it merged, but still it has its individuality. So he says, the Mayavadi conception of individuality is a false conception. Even if there is merging, just like you go to see whale watching on the Puget Sound, right? And then you got your binoculars, and all of a sudden you see this gigantic thing jump out of the water, you know. And first of all, you see some steam come up, right? And then you see this gigantic whale jump out, you know, and you're looking at that. Oh, there he is, I can see it. And then he jumps back in. Oh, I don't see him anymore. And he's merged with the ocean. But does that mean he lost his individuality? No. So in the same way, a green bird, you see it when it's flying, but when it flies into a green forest, you don't see it anymore. Does that mean it lost its individuality? No. So in the same way, this merging into Brahman, it is something that's possible, but still you don't lose your individuality, even if you merge into Brahman. Right? Why? Because individuality is eternal. Now, the Mayavadi said, no, 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 he lost his individuality. You know, it's a bunch of nonsense. Okay. He says, then there is another evidence in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, Mamayavamsa jiva bhuta, jiva loka sanatana. 15:7. Living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. Well, here's another verse in Bhagavad Gita that clearly validates Krishna's statement previously that the soul is eternal. Sanatana, he says. The jiva is the mama eva amsa, the part and parcel. Part and parcel means we are always connected to Krishna. Even if you say, I don't believe in God, still you're connected to Krishna. Why? Because first of all, your body is made of Krishna's energy. Your soul has come from Krishna and is always under the control of Krishna, either under his benevolent control, like he controls the Pandavas by protecting them, right? Or under the control of his material energy, the laws of karma, time, the modes of material nature. So you're always connected to Krishna. And we're situated on Krishna's energy called the Brahma Jyoti. Everything material and spiritual is situated on this Brahman effulgence. And we're also included in the universal body of Krishna, the Virat Rupa. Right? So we're never separated from Krishna. Now you can imagine you're separated. Just like a crazy man thinks, I'm the President of the United States. You know, he can say it. He can believe it himself. It doesn't mean he is, right? And we don't have to believe him. We know he's an idiot. You know. So, therefore, we are the eternal, but being a part and parcel means we have eternal individuality in the past, the present, and future. That's why it says Sanatana. So, these individual souls, they are my part and parcel. Part and parcel means you're connected, but yet you're still an individual. And Krishna is an individual, even though he expands infinite number of living entities, infinite universes, infinite everything he expands. Avatars, expansions, and so forth. But yet, he's always perfect and complete. He's never diminished. Now, you're not like that. If you let's say you expand, let's say you cut off your arm, you know, you're no longer perfect and complete, right? But Krishna, he can expand his arm infinitely. Therefore, his arms and legs are everywhere, because your arms, my arms, they belong to Krishna. They're made from his energy. So his arms and legs are everywhere, but yet he still has his arms and legs. So he's expanded infinitely. Okay. So we can't emulate that. So the parts and parcels are eternal. That means eternally they are part and parcel. Then how this Mayavad theory can be supported? That due to Maya being covered by Maya, they are now appearing individual or separate, but when the covering of Maya will be taken away, they will mix up, just like the small sky within the picture and the big sky outside mixes. So this analogy is fallacious from a logical point of view as well as from authentic Vedic point of view. They are eternally fragments. They're eternal individuals. So now there's two Shastric evidences disproving the Mayavad theory. There are two Shastric, 2.12 and 15.7. There are many other evidences from Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita says that the spirit cannot be fragmented. Achedyo yam, adayo yam, and so forth. Verse 2:24. So he says that Achedyo yam, adayo yam, akledyo sosya eva cha nitya sarva gatastanur achalo yam sanatana. Again, he uses the word sanatana. The soul is unbreakable, insoluble, and can be neither burned nor dry. He's everlasting, meaning eternal, present everywhere, unchangeable, immovable, and eternally the same. So he says, this is more evidence. It cannot be, the soul cannot be cut. Just like you cut one big piece of paper into small fragments, it is possible because it is matter. But spiritually, it is not possible. Spiritually, eternally, the fragments are fragments, and the Supreme is Supreme. Krishna is the Supreme, and we are fragmental parts. In other words, the part can never become equal to the whole. But the part is qualitatively similar or the same. It's Sat Chitananda, but it's not quantitatively the same. So you can get a piece of paper, tear it up, and throw it away, and the oneness of the paper is lost. But Krishna can expand himself infinitely, and his oneness, his completeness is never lost. Om Purnam Ada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate. Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyat. This is a Ishopanishad invocation mantra. The Supreme Lord is perfect and complete. And because he is perfect and complete, everything that emanates from him is also perfect and complete. And even though infinite, perfect and complete emanations come from him, still he remains perfect and complete. So no one can emulate that. And so Krishna has this mystifying power. It's called aja in Sanskrit. You're mystified by it. Like, for example, many times Krishna is present with other incarnations of himself at the same time. Like, for example, in the history of Govardhan Parvat, or Govardhan Hill, when Krishna stopped his father from performing the annual puja for Indra and said, look, we should worship Govardhan. And father said, what? Govardhan is a mountain. It's a rock. How can you worship a rock? There's no Vedic evidence that you worship it. He said, no, we're going to do that. So he convinced his father to do that. The father was very reluctant, but he went along with his son. And then while they were worshiping Govardhan, all of a sudden a gigantic form of Krishna appeared, as big as the mountain. And he started eating the prasadam, of the food that they offered. And everyone bowed down, including Krishna himself. So here we have Krishna, the 7-year-old child of Nanda Maharaj, who's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And you have Krishna, this gigantic form of Krishna, and he's eating all the food they offered. You see? Just to prove that Govardhan is non-different than Krishna. So he did this miraculous thing. So many times, like, for example, Lord Ramachandra meets Parasuram. Parasuram is an incarnation of the Lord. But they meet each other, and instead of fighting, the Parasuram blesses them or whatever. So, but normally they should have fought, but they didn't. So here we see that the Lord can be simultaneously and inconceivably present with his own incarnations. You know, it's like Vyasadeva is the literary incarnation of the Lord, and Narada Muni is the pure devotee of the Lord, and Balaram is the first expansion of the Lord. He's non-different than Krishna, but they're all present together. See? Okay. Therefore, he says there are many other evidences. Okay, so then, to continue, Prabhupada says, these things are explained in Bhagavad Gita in different places very nicely. I request you all to keep one copy of this Bhagavad Gita, every one of you, and read it carefully. And there will be examination in the coming September. So, of course, that is voluntary, but I request you to prepare for the examination next September. And one who will pass the examination will get the title Bhakti Shastri. Okay, so you have to study. September we'll have a test. So, the devotee keeps reading the purport now, the 212. Nor is the theory that we only think of individuality in the conditioned states supported herein. Krishna clearly says that in the future also the individuality of the Lord and the others as it is confirmed. Prabhupada, Krishna never says that after liberation these individual souls will mix up with the Supreme Soul. Krishna never says in Bhagavad Gita. Yeah. Mayavadis say after liberation you merge into this oneness. But Krishna says after liberation you come back to me. Right? And you join the gopis and the gopas and Nanda Babu and Yasoda Mai and the cows and the cowherd and calves and in ecstatic transcendental pastimes. Who wants to be impersonal when you can have so many transcendental personal relationships and exchanges of love with Krishna. So the Mayavadis, basically the whole theory is nonsense. The whole thing is nonsense. There's no sense to it. But yet everybody believes it in India. Not everybody, but many people, most people believe it. Right? That Nirakar, Nirguna, oh, silly ideas, that everything is everything is individual here, and the perfect state is no individuality. That's nonsense. So Krishna never says that after liberation these individual souls will mix up with the Supreme Soul. Krishna never says it in the Bhagavad Gita. Then the devotee continues reading. Krishna clearly says that in the future also the individuality of the Lord and others, as it is confirmed in the Upanishads, will continue eternally. This statement of Krishna is authoritative. Well, isn't that what we want? When you see someone die, you say, oh, I didn't want that person to die. I don't want to die. I want us to be together always. Well, yeah, that's possible. You have to become Krishna conscious, and you all go back to Godhead. You're together eternally with Krishna. Right? The Upanishads say Nityo Nityanam. Now this Nitya means eternal. And the Supreme Lord is the Supreme Eternal. And we, individual souls, we are also eternal. So Nitya means the one eternal, and Nityanam means the many eternals. That's Sanskrit, right? So Krishna is the leader eternal, Eko Bahunam. How is he the leader? Eko Bahunam Vidadati Kaman. He is the one maintaining all the others. So Krishna is maintaining us. He's giving us rain. He's giving us changing seasons. He gives us the sun. He gives us seeds. He gives us earth. He gives us wind, all these things. And things grow. In springtime, everything comes alive. And we have, grow things. And we're sustained by it. And he gives us everything we need. So we are eternal. He's eternal. But the difference is he's maintaining us. He's the Supreme Eternal. The Supreme Lord is eternal and the living entities are eternal. The Supreme Lord is cognizant and the living beings are cognizant. The difference is that the Supreme Lord is supplying all the necessities of life for the many other living entities. That one singular number or one eternal person, Krishna, is supplying all the needs of all the other eternals or eternal persons. These things are clearly said in the Vedas. Actually, we're experiencing, just like in Christian theology, the individual goes to the church and prays, "Dear God, give us this day our daily bread." Yeah, God is giving us bread, food. So this Vedic thought is there also. Vedas say, "Eko bahunam vidadati kamam." Krishna is supplying all the necessities of all the eternal living entities. That Supreme One Eternal he's supplying. He's maintaining all other individual eternals. And Bible also enjoins that you go ask for your bread to God. So unless God is maintainer and supplier, why this injunction is there? Therefore he is the leader. He is the maintainer. And the Vedas clearly say this. This is his position. He is the Supreme. And by knowing this, one can attain peace. That is the Vedic injunction. Peace. Know God as the maintainer, one attains peace. Bhuktaram yagatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram sridam sarvabhutanam gyatvam shantim richati. One attains, knowing Krishna as the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices, Krishna is the ultimate proprietor of everything, Krishna is the best friend, then one attains peace. Okay. This statement of Krishna is authoritative because Krishna cannot be subject to illusion. Prabhupada said, yes, if the Mayavadi philosopher says that this statement of Krishna is Maya, then he says that everyone was individual in the past. No, in the past everyone was one, lump sum, homogeneous. But by Maya we have become individual. So the Mayavadi philosophers say that originally there was no Krishna and all living beings in the spiritual world. There was just one lump called, one homogeneous thing called Brahman. And then the material world appeared, but actually it's an illusion. And all the individuals that you see in the material world, even Krishna's incarnation, is all an illusion. It's not real. So the Mayavadis become, by these statements, the worst aparadis, worse than the atheists, worse than the demons. Although they follow Vedic rules, but they're the worst insulters of Krishna. They say that Krishna's body is material. That is like the worst insult. And if his body is material, like your body and my body, then we don't have to read Bhagavad Gita, because that means he's under the influence of the modes of material nature, like we are. Therefore, no one who's influenced by the modes of material nature, who is temporary, who has a temporary body, can explain what the absolute truth is. Right. Why? Because we make mistakes, we're easily illusioned, the senses are imperfect, and we have a cheating propensity. See? So actually the Mayavadis are the worst aparadis, the worst offenders of the Lord. Although they follow the Vedic rules. You see? Just like when Lord Chaitanya was present, the Brahmanas they complained to Nawab Hussain Shah, the emperor or the ruler of Bengal. They said, this guy is disturbing Lord Vishnu. He said, how is that? He's disturbing God. How is that? He said, in this period, the Lord is in Yoga Nidra. He's taking rest. And he's going around banging on these kartals and playing drums and chanting as loud as they can. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. He's disturbing the Lord. So Nawab said, okay. No, Chankasi. He said, well, what should I do? He said, you should stop him. He said, okay. So he went and he sent his men and they broke some mridungas and they stopped the devotees. So when the Lord Chaitanya... But see, it wasn't that the Muslims particularly wanted to do it. It was the Brahmins that were complaining. You see. Now the same thing happened with Jesus. See, Jesus comes and he declares himself the Son of God. So and the thing that really got the Jewish priests angry is he goes into the main temple of Solomon and he overturns the tables of the money changers, because people would come to this temple in 2,000 years ago because Solomon was very famous, you know, and he had built this fantastic temple. And they would buy animals from the local priests and give them to the priests to sacrifice. So, but they would come from different countries, so you needed the money changers, right? Just like you have foreign exchange, right? So they would get their money and give them the local money, and they would buy these animals. They would get chickens and goats and whatever, cows, whatever, you know, depending on how much money you have. And then they would sacrifice the animal on the altar. There was a gigantic altar, and then they would spread the blood of the animal on the altar. And this is all explained in the Bible, in the book of the Old Testament called Leviticus. They describe, you know, how they would squeeze the neck of the chicken, you know, with the left hand and right hand, both hands going in the opposite direction, and break the neck, and then they would put the blood on. Jesus was horrified by it. He was horrified. He said, this is nonsense. This doesn't belong in the temple. The temple is not a money change place. It's not and this sacrificing animals to God is not pleasing to God. That really got the priests mad. That's why, you know, they complained. And the fact that they used some technical term, though he's complaining, he's claiming to be the king of the Jews. Well, at that time, the king or the emperor of the Roman Empire was the king, right? And the governor was there, Herod. So, you know, it was like, for the Romans, this was a heresy. But for the priest, the real problem was he came in and disrupted their whole business, right? You hit someone on the bottom line, they really get angry. You know, just like Trump is hitting China in the bottom line. The Chinese are really getting angry. You know, they're ruining their economy. You know. Okay, so there's a certain parallel here between what the Brahmins did to Lord Chaitanya and what the Jewish rabbis are doing to Jesus. There's a definite parallel. Okay, so the Mayavadis say, Krishna says that everyone was an individual in the past, the present, and the future. Jai Shri Radha Nilamadava Ki Jai. But the Mayavadis say in the past no one was an individual. There was just this homogeneous Brahman effulgence. And now, whatever individuality you see, it's an illusion. And when the illusion is over, everyone goes back, and no, not everyone, but everything merges back into this oneness. There's no Vaikuntha, there's no Goloka, there's no cows, there's no Nanda Baba. This is all an illusion. Well, you see, that's why it's said that the Mayavadis are the worst operatis, the worst. Worse than the demons, worse than the atheists. Although they follow the Vedic rules. And that Krishna is one of the conditioned soul. That's another thing that he says. His body is material. It's not spiritual. If that's true, then he loses his authority. You don't have to read Bhagavad Gita. No one with a material body with all the defects of human being can speak the absolute truth. However, Krishna is accepted as the absolute Supreme Personality of Godhead. And if the Mayavadi theory is accepted, then Krishna's theory has to be rejected. If Krishna is rejected, then there's no need of reading Krishna's book, Bhagavad Gita. It is useless, waste of time. If he's a conditioned soul like us, because we cannot take any instruction from a conditioned soul. Now, this is a very important point. We should know what is the symptom of a bona fide teacher. It doesn't matter what they're teaching, but there has to be a criterion to know who's bona fide and who's not bona fide. So a bona fide teacher is a person who follows the principles of Sanatana Dharma and who knows what the absolute truth is. Therefore, but in schools today, they don't look at the morality or the belief of a teacher. They say, oh, you know 2 + 2 = 4. You can be a math teacher. Oh, you're smoking marijuana. That's all right. Just don't smoke in the school. Right? Oh, you're doing this. Okay, that's all right. You can do it outside, but not in school. Those are not teachers. If you accept so-called knowledge from such people, what will be the result? You will become like them. You'll become attracted to sense gratification. That's the only thing they can teach. They're not teaching math. They're not teaching science. Yeah, they say they are, but what are they going to teach you? They're going to teach you their lifestyle. Right? Abortion, this thing, that thing, that lifestyle. So the spiritual master, even if you take that he's a conditioned soul, but he does not speak anything from his own side, he speaks from Krishna's side. The Vedic principle is that unless one is not liberated from the material conditions, he cannot give us any perfect knowledge. Okay. The conditioned soul, however, he may be academically advanced, educated. He cannot give us any perfect knowledge. Only one who is above the condition of these material laws, he can give us the perfect knowledge. Similarly, Sankaracharya, he's also an impersonalist, but he accepts Krishna as the supreme authority. Sa Bhagavan Swayam Krishnam. Yeah. If you look up Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st Canto, 3rd chapter, 28th verse, in the purport, they quote Sankaracharya. 1:328. Okay, 1 second. 1 second. Sankaracharya. Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. In the first canto, 9th chapter, verse 18, they quote Narayan from the Bhagavad Gita Bhasya of Sankaracharya. Narayana Parovyaktat Andam Avyakta Sambhavam Andasyantas Tvime Loka Saptadvipa Chamedini. So he says, what does he say? He says that in the beginning of his Bhagavad Gita commentary, he says, Narayana, the personality Godhead, is beyond the material creation. So, the universe is one of the material creations, but Narayana is transcendental to such material paraphernalia. So, although he's the, let's say, the modern quintessential Mayavadi philosopher, still he does not insult Krishna like his so-called followers do. He is glorifying Krishna as what? As being transcendental to the modes of material nature. Therefore, his Bhagavad Gita is valid. How do we know? Sankaracharya writes the Bhasya. He writes his commentary on Bhagavad Gita. He's written many beautiful poems glorifying Krishna and Radharani. Right? So even though he's the leader of the Mayavadis, he's actually a devotee. And this is what Prabhupada is going to say now. All of the above-mentioned incarnations are either plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions of the Lord, but Lord Shri Krishna is the original personality Godhead. All of them appear on the planets whenever there is a disturbance created by the atheists. The Lord incarnates to protect the theists. So, Krishna is the Supreme Personality Godhead. The modern Mayavadi philosophers, they do not disclose the statement of Sankaracharya. They don't talk about it. To cheat people. But Sankaracharya's statement is there. We can give evidence. He accepts Krishna as the supreme authority. Why did he write the Bhagavad Gita Bhasya? It was to glorify the Lord. He has written so many nice poems praising or worshipping Krishna. And at the last time he says, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam Mudamate, you rascals. Oh, you are depending on grammar to understand. This is all nonsense. Bhaja Govindam, just worship Govindam. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam. 3 times he says, just worship Govinda. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam. Just like Lord Chaitanya says 3 times, Harinama, Harinama, Harinama. Okay. So 3 times means giving too much stress. And it's most important. Just like we sometimes say, you do this, do this, do this. That means no more denial. Finish all stress. So as soon as one thing is 3 times stressed, that means final. So Sankaracharya says, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Mudamate. Muda, I've several times explained. Muda means rascal, an ass. You are depending on your grammatical understanding. Dukrin karane. Dukrin. These are grammatical affix and prefix, pratya and prakarana. So you are depending on this verbal root, that verbal root, and creating, interpreting your meaning in different way. All this is nonsense. This dukrin karane, your grammatical jugglery of words, will not save you at the time of death. You rascal, you just worship Govinda, Govinda, Govinda. That is the instruction of Sankaracharya. Haribol. Yes.
Mayavadis are also spiritualists. They are in that line. Let's say there is one person who wants to follow a certain path.
He what? Wants to follow?
There is one person who wants to follow a spiritual path.
Yes.
So because he wants to follow a path, he is going to follow his guru. He's not going to be if he's sincere, he's going to follow his guru.
Yeah.
So when Shankaracharya is the head of the Mayavadis and Mayavadis are following him, how come they are cheating him? Like because
No, Prabhupada's making a point. They deviated from him. They deviated from him. That's what he's saying. They did. They didn't take his final, most important instruction. Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda. They went deeper, just like Nehru was a follower of Gandhi, right? But Nehru deviated from Gandhi. Gandhi didn't want to industrialize India. He industrialized India, right?
We see like several examples. Like we see like Lord Buddha came up to stop the sacrifices, ahimsa param dharma. And today's world we see Dalai Lama, who is actually
he's deviated.
Yeah, he says like vegetarianism is good. I practice twice a week.
What is it? What did he say?
He says vegetarianism is good. I practice it twice a week.
What happens to the other 5 days?
Twice a week.
He's eating his mother and father the rest of the time.
Bro, there's a deity of Buddha which is offered a fresh wheat every day.
Now look, they've deviated, Prabhu. Just like the
deviate like total 180 degree. Like the followers, the prophet says, Guru says.
Prabhu, you were married, right? Did your wife deviate? Huh? How is it possible? She was married to you, now she's going with somebody else. How is it possible? So this is normal in the material world. There's no morality, there's no decency, there's no loyalty, there's none of that stuff. Everyone has their own opinion. Yatamat tatapat. Everyone thinks, as many opinions, the better. Just as long as you accept me as God, I'll accept you as God. Then we don't have any argument. But these Hare Krishnas, we don't accept them because they don't want to join us. People deviate, Prabhu. Every day they're deviating. They're coming up with their own theories and speculations. Yeah, it was his #1 disciple. Sadananda, what is his name? Sadananda something. He's the one that started the deviation from Sankaracharya. Prabhupada explains it in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Sankaracharya is a devotee. He's a devotee. It's Lord Shiva, obviously. He's a great devotee. Okay, we'll stop there. We'll finish this Monday. We've been on this 4 days now.
Yeah.
But it's a very wonderful lecture. It's a very wonderful lecture. So many things he's explaining. We could spend the rest of our life on this lecture. Yeah. Haribol. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Yeah, every Monday to Thursday we hear Prabhupada's lectures, but this lecture was so good, we're spending more time on it. We heard it twice. Monday and Tuesday we heard it, but it's so good that we're, going over it more carefully. Yeah. You want a copy of it? Here.